And then we're closing the program, moving back to SAU, and Carla Williamson will be the speaker telling us about Upward Bound. And today, I am very pleased to present to you Jason Martizik and Peter Sidhu Mayon, who are in charge of the program, the coordinators, the directors of our International Student Services Program at SAU. And this is an extremely significant and important program on our campus.
Hello, thank you for having us today. First off, I'd just like to introduce myself a little bit. So, yeah, I studied at SAU from 2003 to 2007. I've always had an interest in international affairs, culture, anything. So, as I was getting ready to graduate, I started looking for opportunities to go abroad. I was thinking about the Peace Corps, but I was planning on getting married, and it's a little more difficult to find placement with that, so I looked into teaching. And actually, I had several instructors at SAU paved the way for that as well. So I taught in China for 4 years. I was in the city of Wuxi, which is a small Chinese city of only about 8 million people. We were maybe about an hour outside of Shanghai on the fast train, which is awesome going 200 miles an hour, I'll tell you that. And then I decided to move back home, look for a job, and I just happened to accidentally come across SAU hiring an international student advisor, and I applied pretty close to the last day of closing, and next thing I know, I've been working at SAU for almost 4 years now. So it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. So with what we do, I always kind of joke that our job is partly government regulations, but 99% just babysitting. With international students, there's a lot of work that just goes into hand-holding. A lot of these students are coming from cultures that are extremely different from ours, and not just culture-wise, but they're also coming from pretty large cities. Like I said, they're coming from cities of 19, 20, 15 million people, and they're coming to little bitty Magnolia. And it's funny trying to, because we pick them up in Texarkana, and it's funny watching their faces as we drive back to Magnolia, because they're just kind of looking around, and they're shocked at everything. Because we had one student that told me that she expected it to be like Sex in the City. She was expecting a big giant city. So we not only do we have to let them get used to the idea of living in the American culture, we also have to get them used to living in small town USA, which to some of them is quite a shock. No matter how much we try to explain to them before they get here, it's still a shock. So what I do is I am a PDSO, or it's a principal designated school official. My main job is to create the immigration documents that students come to SAU on, and I basically monitor their status while they're in the U.S. All of our students are F1 students, which is the visa type. And the way it works is I create an I-20, which is their immigration document. We mail it to them. They take that, they get their F1 visa, and then they come over to the U.S. Our students have, just like everything else that has to do with immigration, they have complicated hoops to jump through, and processing for each country is a little different. Some of them get visas rather easily, some of them get them very difficultly. Some of our largest populations come from countries where it's kind of difficult for students to get visas. But it's an interesting process, very, very interesting. But like I said, that's part of it, and then the rest of it is just us monitoring what they do on campus. And that, like I said, that's probably about 85, 90% of our job, is just keeping track of them throughout the semester and throughout the year. And even after they graduate, we have to keep track of them as they find employment. I guess we can talk about your experience at SAU.
All right. Well, first of all, I would like to thank everyone, Rotary Club, for inviting us to speak today. I always feel nervous talking in front of like a formal meeting or gathering like this, and especially with the podium and all that. So bear with me. Okay, again, my name is Peter Situmeang, and I'm an assistant director for the International Student Services at SAU. I've been here in Magnolia, Arkansas for 16 years now, I would say, almost 16 years. Came here in spring 2000, started at SAU as an international student, freshman student. Wayne Gardner was the advisor at that time, and he went to Texarkana, picked me up at the airport, and I lived the experience like what Jason mentioned. In the van, I was looking around, trees. Okay. I came from Jakarta. Indonesia is it the fourth most populated country in the world? I think just below U.S. So I was from a crowded city coming to Magnolia, Arkansas. I was so surprised. Everything was different. Maybe every now and then I see one or two houses along the way, but that was about it. So I was like, what did I get myself into? So it was quite an adjustment. I'm not gonna lie, it was quite an adjustment. But, well, 2016, I'm here. And I love it. I'm still here. I graduated in 2004. I did my undergraduate in CIS. At that time, Computer Information System. It was a business program, although now they changed it to Management Information System, I believe. Then after that, I went to Maryland. I worked there for a little bit. And we had a program, I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, OPT program, which is a one-year work permit that we get for international students. So we get to work in the U.S. after our graduation for about a year. Now, I did that in Maryland for about a year, and then I was like, what am I going to do now? Okay, I did my undergrad, now what? Should I continue? Should I continue working, or should I continue my study? So I decided, well, maybe I should continue my study. Undergrad nowadays is pretty good a level of education, but the job is not as wide open as if you were having a higher degree. So I decided to look for a master program, and it just so happened SAU just opened a computer science graduate program at that time. So I was one of the first students in that program. And I finished that program in 2006, and I was like, now what? Start looking for a job. But before I even start looking for a job, Miss Claudia Lyons used to be the director of International Student Office, and she was asking me, would you like to work with our office? Well, before then, throughout my study in master program, I worked as a driver for international students, and then I worked as a graduate assistantship, and I guess she liked me working there, which is a good thing. So I was like, okay, I guess I shouldn't be looking for any other job then. I mean, if you're offering me this job. And I've been working with the office ever since until today, and I loved it. It's just my role has kind of changed. I used to be a student, now I'm helping students. So I have like a little bit of, I would say, a different perspective as a student, and now as an, I would say, like an advisor for them. When I was a student, I used to ask so many questions. Now I felt like, okay, there are hundreds of students always asking me some trivial questions. How do I get to Walmart? Okay. Why Magnolia doesn't have bus? And then sometimes, I don't say I get annoyed, but like, just too many questions. But then again, I start to think again, well, that was exactly me 15 years ago. So I have different perspective in looking at this thing. And I truly enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed the town. It's a quiet town, small, but I have what I need. It's quiet. It's not like Los Angeles or New York or even Jakarta. It's just too crowded. Maybe if I have to go home and live in Jakarta now, I don't know if I would like it. Probably I wouldn't like it at all. I'm used to the small town and quiet setting as it is right now. So, well, that's a little bit of my experience. Again, Jason, you want to talk a bit more about international students there?
If you have questions about F1 visa types or anything like that, you're welcome to ask. I don't want to bore you with too much regulation stuff. Because trust me, it's complicated. But as far as international students on our campus, we have experienced quite a boom in our population. So in fall 2014, we had roughly around 150, 160 international students on our campus. That includes ESL students, which are studying English, undergraduate students, and graduate students. And as far as employees, we do have several employees that used to be students just like Peter. We have several on campus. But F1 students, around 150, 160. This spring, we have over 1,000 students on campus that are undergraduate and graduate and ESL. So basically, we've seen a giant increase in our numbers. So just like everything else, we're just booming right now. And it's pretty amazing. A lot of them, if you haven't noticed them around Magnolia, are Indian students. You might have run into several hundred of them, especially on Mondays and Wednesdays, because that's when they mostly attend their classes. So our total population is over 1,000. Like I said, we've increased from less than 200 in just 2 years to 1,000. Currently, we have students from 32 different countries that are from all over the place. The only place we don't have students from would be Antarctica and Australia. So we're still working on the Antarctica field. We'll get there. We'll get there. Yes. So, I think we're planning the trip there. We'll see. Our top populations. So just to talk about the Indian students. So our top population right now are Indian students. We went from 0 in spring of 2014 to over 900 this semester. And what's amazing about how our international office works is we don't spend a lot on, or almost nothing on recruiting. A lot of ours is simply word of mouth. And this is students going back home or telling their friends that SAU is a really good school, it's affordable, and they also tell students that Magnolia offers quite a bit as far as things to do a little bit. But they tell them we're close to Dallas. I think that's a selling point. But a lot of it is word of mouth. Most of our students somehow know somebody that's connected to SAU, and it is rather amazing. We've had one Nepalese family whose cousin attended 6 or 7 years ago, and I think we've had about 8 members of his family come to SAU. 3 are there right now. So it's pretty amazing how just our atmosphere in Magnolia and SAU provides students for us just by word of mouth. And it's rather amazing. So top populations. So like I said, India, we have over 900. Next would be our Saudi Arabia population, which is 34. Most of these students have been ESL, learning English, but a lot of them have moved up to undergrad and grad. Next would be Nigeria. This is our pretty much our fast-growing population right now as well. Nothing compared to the Indians, but it's one of our fast-growing populations. And then would be Nepal, which is 17, and then China, which is 6. China we've kind of dropped down on, but same thing with Nepal as well. Especially since the earthquake in Nepal, visas have been kind of hard to get, and the consulate there has been stricter on handing out visas as well. And that's something that you see differently in different countries. Sometimes it's extremely easy for students to get visas, sometimes it's very, very difficult. Yeah, the Saudi numbers has also dropped a little bit, but that's because the way the Saudi program works is that they go through their government for funding. It's called SACM. So basically their government pays for everything for them. It pays for school and it pays for living expenses. But since Saudi Arabia has been having some financial problems because of oil and the wars that they're handling right now, they've kind of cut back on their scholarship program. So a lot of students have had to transfer out because of that or have to go back home. But we're still seeing several come, or not several, we're seeing a few come still every semester, so it's not too bad. As far as contribution, our population right now at SAU has pretty much surpassed the rest of the state, which is pretty amazing. We're the only school that has more international students than us is Fayetteville now. Next would be Conway, which has around 600-700 students, international students. So, I mean, right now, SAU, just like in every other category, is just doing extremely well, extremely well. And right now, NAFSA, which is kind of our organization for anything to do with international students or travel, it estimates that the value of international students in Arkansas is roughly around $164 million that they bring in paying tuition and spending money in the state. And they estimate that for Magnolia, that is around $3.7 million that students bring here. Now this is based on 2004 fall, 2014 numbers. So I'll have to wait till next fall and I'll have numbers for this past fall. So I mean, it's pretty incredible the amount of money that these students bring to the state and bring to the school and our city. So they are a valuable addition to everything that they come through. Now, most of our students, the amazing thing with them is that they stay here. In the summertime, a lot of them will leave. Some of them will go home. Some of them will go on vacation or visit family around the country. But because of our summer school program, we're having more and more students decide to stay on campus or stay in town. So we're starting to see a larger number of students actually stay in Magnolia during the summer compared to what it was about 3 years ago. I would say based on our old numbers, we would have at least maybe, I think last summer we had maybe about 50 or 60 international students that stayed in Magnolia all summer. As far as limitations on our international population, or the common complaints we get, would be, of course, the same thing that all university students complain about, would be limits on entertainment. There's nothing for them to really do. And then also housing options. This is probably one of the biggest burdens that we're facing with our students is housing. Because one problem is that most of them don't have vehicles, so it really and truly their only big option is Fox Creek, which is right next to the university. Beyond that, they're going to have to get a bicycle or try to get a vehicle, or they can walk. A lot of our Indian students walk up from like Linda Street, and we actually had some that lived on the other side of Main Street that would walk to school every day. So we're working with our MCIS program, trying to provide bicycles and things like that to help them. But probably right now, housing is probably our biggest constraint right now with international students. As far as dealing with international students, you may run into different things. So we've had experiences with students going to Walmart and at checkout trying to barter or haggle the price down. This happens. Normally this is fixed within the first week or so of school, but normally the first week we kind of have to let them know you can't haggle down prices with the cashier. Yeah, completely different concept. Completely different concept. But we do have, normally always at the beginning of the semester, there's always the cultural tweaks that you have to do to get people used to living here. Right now, the biggest thing is trying to get our Indian students not to ride their bicycles down the middle of the road. Because in India, it doesn't matter. But here, people kind of get upset when they have to swerve around people. So it's just little things like that. Like I said, we're babysitters most of the time. But that's pretty much all I have. I was going to leave some time for questions because, yes.
You say you keep track of the students after they leave SAU. It's my understanding that there are probably thousands of students that came over here and didn't graduate or graduated or dropped out, and no one knows where they are.
So this is there. Just like everything else with the immigration system, it's full of holes and problems. Normally what happens is when a student comes here and if they don't show up on our campus, but we know they're in the U.S., which I normally know. So I can go into, SEVIS is the database, student database. Everything's electronic. So I see when they get their visa, I see when they enter the country and everything. So if I see somebody who doesn't report to school, or I find out they quit going to class, I go into SEVIS and I update SEVIS. I terminate the student's visa pretty much. And when I do that, it's reported to DHS, which is reported to ICE, and then they track them down eventually. But right now, with the way ICE works, if they really haven't committed a felony or committed crime, they kind of get pushed down pretty low on the totem pole of people they're hunting down. So it's just an overworked system. So.
Well, to add to that is, as Jason mentioned, well, your question about how can we track them after their graduation, yeah, it is difficult. However, they do have requirements to report to us, let's say like within 90 days of getting their OPT or their work permit, they must report of their jobs. Because basically they need to have a job within that 90 days.
Yeah, as long as they're in status, which means they're reporting like they should,
Right.
then I have a complete record of everything they do.
Of where they are, where they work, things like that. But after that 1 year pass, I mean, they could become illegal or they could go somewhere. I mean, of course, that would be out of our responsibilities, our ability to track them down. That would be the immigration, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, with F1 visas, F1 and visitor visas are two of the more common overstay issues. So,
Steve,
yes.
How long do you let them keep their student email address?
I don't know. That would be a good question for IT.
I mean, it's good for a lot of different reasons because you get to keep
Normally-
with alumni,
Mhm.
and you get money from them.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if there's a way to keep up with them.
Well, yeah, that's something we're actually working with the alumni office right now, is trying to keep a better record of students. And this is something that, because of our giant increase in numbers, with our office, we've hired an extra person, we have extra graduate assistants, and we're still working extremely hard. And so luckily enough, we're getting a managing database system where we can hopefully track students better and keep in contact with them better. But yeah, we're working with the alumni office right now, trying to create a better way of getting not only their student email, but also their personal, usual email that they use everything for.
Jason, would you tell them how the Indian program works about the community and
Yeah.
the online part of it?
Okay. Yeah, the way, it's a really neat system. The way it works is, so we have 900 Indian students. Almost to a man, they are NCIS students, computer science, masters in computer science students. And the way the program works is it's a mixture of in-class, online classes, and hybrid classes. Hybrid classes are classes where you meet sometimes in class, sometimes just online. And so because of the way our classes are set up, students are allowed to live a little further. So they don't have to live in Magnolia, they can drive in from Irving or Dallas or Shreveport, which is fairly common for our students. And so what they'll do is they have their own Facebook pages where they communicate and they get rides together, they carpool, and they'll drive in. That's why if you come on campus on Monday and Wednesday, it's like Mumbai on campus. But the rest of the week is just regular SAU. But they've arranged it to where most classes are only on Monday and Wednesdays, so we'll have this giant boom of students And I think they have filled up every single large room we have on campus. So if someone wants to build us a giant Indian complex, you can. Yes, sir.
Well, how big an issue is food?
Very big issue. Our students always have a difficult time getting used to the food here because everything's pretty much fried or cooked with bacon or some type of pork, and so that causes us problems because fried food they have to get used to. Like we had a Japanese girl who had a really, really hard time getting used to it because her cuisine never had anything really fried. But because of the bacon and pork, that has problems with some of our students. Also, of course, beef. Most of our students can have beef. But with our Indian students, they are very, very reluctant to eat American food. They want Indian food. And so that's something that we at SAU have bent over backwards trying to provide Indian food for them, or Nepalese food for them. But yeah, food is a major issue that we're having to deal with.
Well, what would be their food program?
Curries, rice, so things like that. Some of them, yeah, I'd probably say about maybe 100 or so would be pure vegetarians.
So the cafeteria accommodates that on a daily basis?
Yes, yeah. What we've done is we've worked with Airmark on campus, and I was talking to the manager, and he was looking over his numbers, and he just realized there was a giant boom at the Chick-fil-A for spicy chicken sandwiches on Mondays and Wednesdays. So he's had to order more spicy chicken on those days, or for those days. And then in the cafeteria on Monday and Wednesdays, they provide a little area that normally has some type of curry or rice dish. So yeah, they've done extremely well trying to help them. Yes,
Is there a particular region of India from which we receive these students?
Hyderabad.
Mostly from Hyderabad.
Mhm. Hyderabad, if you have India, it's kind of in the southern central area. I actually went there about 3 years ago on a recruiting trip, and it's beautiful, very, very cool. But yeah, they're mostly, I want to say probably all of our Indian students are from that area. I think maybe one or two are from Mumbai.
Yeah, very few that are from different areas, mostly from Telangana state or Andhra Pradesh state, which is where Hyderabad city is. They speak Telugu there, so people might say, oh, they speak Indian language. There are like thousands of languages there. Most Indian students normally, when they come from the north, they speak Hindi. But these students that we have, they're from a little bit southern, I would say east part of India, and they speak different languages, and most of them, I would say 90-something% speaks Telugu, so they're from that area.
To what you attribute the tremendous increase in the numbers of students from India? Because of the course that you offer?
It's the course that we're offering. It's the cost, which is incredibly cheap compared to other schools. And then I think it's because we're so close to the Dallas area, which is kind of it's an IT hub in Dallas. So a lot of them can come here and quite easily and quickly get a job in Dallas after they graduate.